Hi, Fee. How are you?
Hi, Anya. I'm well. Yourself?
Fine, thank you. I'm so grateful that you're spending this time with me today.
Thank you for having me.
And
This is
have,
exciting.
yes, no, I told you yesterday, but I just have to say it again that I, took the chance to, because we've never actually met in person, as you know, and I took the chance to email you really out of nowhere and had to pull all of my, confidence together to know that or not, because I'm such a fan and I know that we have some of my friends and people that I know are also huge fans of your work and of you listening today. So grateful for your time.
That means a lot to me. You're a big deal yourself, so I'm happy to be here. I'm happy for this conversation, this much needed conversation. Let's get into it. I'm excited.
So as I mentioned, we'd had a little bit of a chat that helped me to just, because you can read articles and you can get, of course, social media has a certain sort of gloss to it, but it was really wonderful to start to see behind the brand and behind the front-facing story. And so much of what we discussed is what I really hope we get into today. So I know that there's so many key points that you want to be able to bring up today, and especially for all of the aspiring Caribbean designers who are listening, and or anyone who's aspiring in the industry of fashion. It's obviously something that means a lot to me. I know means a lot to you, and not just the act of being a designer, but the path to get to where you are. And so I really just want to kind of just have a conversation that allows you to share how you got where you are, what are the things that you feel are key to have accomplished what you have and continue to accomplish what you have, because we know that you're only as good as your last show, they say, and what it requires to stay authentically in a space that you can create. So I wanted to just kind of start from particularly the idea of entrepreneurship and how entrepreneurship really plays into what you've been able to accomplish versus the idea of being a designer only without those skill sets of being an entrepreneur. I know you come from a long line of entrepreneurs in your family. So I think it would be a great place to begin.
So for me, when I think of the word entrepreneurship, and when I decided at a very young age to become an entrepreneur, it meant freedom to me, and I associate the both together. I watched my mom, when she first came to America, she worked. And then when she decided to make the switch over to start her own business, that was magical in my eyes. I had a front row seat to creating your own world and creating your life, essentially. So when I think of entrepreneurship, I think about freedom, and I think about the power you have in that sense, to make your own life path, to work for yourself, to call the shots, to make decisions. And of course that has its ugly side of that, but for the most part, it's what I know I wanted to do. It's who I knew I wanted to be. And like you said, I come from a long line of my grandmother's an entrepreneur, my uncles, my mom, they're all entrepreneurs. They all started their own businesses and worked for themselves. So I knew that that was going to be the path. Entrepreneurship was a path for me, aside of being at first I didn't know I wanted to be a designer, but I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur in fashion. Right. And the road just kind of led me that way. And the second part of the question.
Actually, what I just realized is that I'm so excited to get into the conversation that I didn't get a chance to introduce because I really should first say that, this series of talks is with incredible women like you who are Caribbean descent, who are creatives in their various fields. So obviously this is fashion. For obvious reasons, this was one of the talks I'm most excited about. And
Thank you.
And I just maybe will give a little bit of background actually to your Caribbean descent and what you do now specifically, so that for the people who don't necessarily follow your specific brand, I think that would be a good place to return to first.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Felicia Noel. I go by the name Fee Noel. I'm the creator and owner of a women's wear brand, which also is named Felicia Noel. I am of Caribbean descent, Grenadian in particular, and my brand is inspired by the Caribbean. I'm more focused on resort wear. So when people wear my clothes, they think about travel. We also have a division called Fee Essentials, which is everyday wear for the female woman. And my slogan, which I'm sure you're going to hear several times today, is make life beautiful. And it inspires women to eat well, travel often, and dress to inspire. And that is what I've built my whole company on. That is what I'm about. That is the way that I live my life. And that is the way I want to inspire other women to live their life. So that's me in a nutshell, in a pretty nutshell of what I stand for, what I do, and who I am, you know.
Thank you so much for that. I know that what's really so powerful about your brand is how much people resonate with what you just said. The aspects of freedom, the aspects of travel, of wellness, of making life beautiful. I mean, there's nothing more aspirational and yet achievable than that. And I just think it's incredible that you've created a brand that really powerfully represents that. And we have someone named Jasmine Santiago saying hello to you.
Hi, Jasmine. Anya, you make it sound, when I listen to you repeat it, you word it so beautifully. When you repeat it back to me, I may have to let you write for me so I can say it that way. But yes, essentially, like all of those things, when people see and wear the brand or interact with it in any way possible, those are the things that I want to pop into their mindset.
It's amazing. And I think what you touched on with me in our previous conversation that really does have that resonance is because you come from a place of purpose and you come from a place of believing in you. And I've read, in several articles where you've said that you have to decide who you are and you have to go in that direction. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more about that.
So I like to speak on this because I want people to know, and I want to say this at first. At first, I wasn't proud of this. I was actually insecure about it. I didn't have formal fashion training. I didn't go to a fashion school where they taught me how to pattern make and drape and taught me fashion history. I'm solely self-taught. And for a long, long time, I felt insecure about that because I felt, I can do a lot more, or I would be a lot further if I did get to do that. All I had was belief in myself and the ability to do. And that's my gift. I'm self-motivated. I've always been ambitious. When I think about, what is it about Felicia Noel? What is it about you? And I dream and then I do. And my doing is not perfect, right? It didn't come out pretty or how I wanted to or to my expectations when I first started. Actually, it didn't come out to my expectations till most recently in my career. And I've been in the game for over 10 plus years. So I want people to understand that. I say a lot that it's kind of, in a simple way of putting it, hard work does beat talent. There are a lot of talented people out there. I know a lot of talented people. I have a lot of talented people that work for me. But it's my ability to believe in something. And that is the hardest thing for people to do, to believe in their own dream, to have confidence in their own dream, and to forge forward. That's my talent. That's my secret sauce. That's what I did. And that's how I got started. And that's what I'm using. Anytime I'm presented with this feeling of insecurity, which happens all the time, by the way. So I'm not saying that I'm so proud that I didn't get to go to school. I actually really wanted to go to fashion school, but my Caribbean family, they believed in more like doctors and teachers. That has since changed. But when I wanted to go to fashion school, they were like, absolutely not. What are you going to do with that? Like, what's going to happen, So you have to keep going, even if no one else sees what you're dreaming of in your head. And that's my story. There's people who went to fashion school and have a success story, but my success story is that I made do with what I had. I worked with what I had, and I worked with what was within me. It was innate, and the feeling of the ambition, the the ability to self-start, that like I feel like I was born with that, you know?
Yeah. And do you feel that there's a connection between your Caribbean heritage and what that is?
Um, yeah, yes. And I don't know if I should speak on, like, I don't know if it's, I do want to say that I feel like Caribbeans in general, they work with what they have.
Mm-hmm.
They create a life for themselves with what they have. And essentially that's what I did.
Yeah.
I worked with what I was able to do and what I had at the time, you know? But my family, my mom, again, I'm always going to bring her up because that's what she did.
Yeah.
You know, people think of you starting a business. Even me, just watching her, I'm like, where'd you get the money from to do that? Like, what's this magic? Like, how did you do that? And you'll be surprised with what can happen when you start to work with what you have and how life will unfold for you, you know?
Yeah, I've also read actually to that point, and we started to mention this yesterday about bootstrapping, and you know that when you have of course it's wonderful to have some grand, you know, opportunity of funding, and of course that gives you a certain amount of freedom. But I think what's so brilliant about what I've heard you say before is how not having something like that sort of enforced a level of creativity to do what you could with what you had. And I think if you could share a little bit about that, it's an incredibly powerful message, not just for creatives, but for people in this time that we're in right now.
Yeah. So what I want to say, and there's two folds to this. I'm also going to give you guys a gem of how I think or how I wish I would have bootstrapped. But bootstrapping, it's basically you're taking what you have, your talent, you have an idea, and you're using that to essentially sell it to someone to make money off of it. And you may not have a lot of products. For conversation's sake, let's say I had an idea for a t-shirt. For me, it was a dress. I had an idea for a dress. I made the dress. I sold the dress for $168. Now I have $168, right? I took back the money that I initially put in it, and let's say I have $80. I take the $80 and I make another dress. And that is the idea of bootstrapping. When you're doing it on a bigger level, sometimes it's like robbing Peter to pay Paul, because you're like, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to, you know, I can't pay my phone bill, I can't pay. But that's the idea of bootstrapping. It's like making your one product, making money off of it, and using it to fund the rest of the business. And yes, it's going to take time because you didn't get big funding to do it, but you're still able to do it. And isn't that the best part? So my gem was actually hidden in there. If you want to bootstrap, if you don't have the money to start your business, think about what is something that I can make to sell, to build my website, to LLC my company, to do whatever it is. And that's how you have to think about it, you know, and that's the simplest way that I can break down bootstrapping. And that's what I've been able to do. Along the way, I got investments from friends, like, oh, can you give me $1,000 and I'll give you back $1,100 in a month, you know? So you start to get really, really creative when you feel so strongly about your dream and you want to make it happen. And you may fail at first. So that doesn't mean the dream doesn't work. It's just like, okay, let me try this again, or let me try it differently. And essentially, until you get a big loan, you're bootstrapping your entire way, you know, to success, which I'm still doing now. It's basically working again with what you have, you know, that's all it is. And I like to break it down simply because I want it to resonate with people. Working with what you have. And if all you have is $1, figure that out. If you can cook a cookie and sell it for $5, you have to think like, that's how crazy. First of all, guys, my mind is insane. I'm always thinking, I'm thinking of the craziest things. And that's how my mind works when there's something that I want, you know? And I wanted my business to succeed. I wanted to make more things. So that's what I did. The mistake I made was I tried to make too many things. So my gem for you is start with one thing, one product. Whether you're a designer, an artist, start with just trying to sell one thing, because it will sort of lower your risk when you're coming into the games. That's my gem that I wish I would have did. I didn't listen to that, and it was terrible, but later on, I learned it later on. So that's why I'm giving it to you guys early on, wherever you are in your career, so you can apply that method as well.
I hope people are taking notes, and I'm just going to check because there's so many, and we could write a book off of what you're saying right now. We'll get to the questions soon, guys, and I just wanted to say quickly, thank you so much for joining, and we are going to give away a scholarship to the Yellowbrick Fashion Essentials program, which I think actually speaks so much. Both Fee and I don't actually have formal fashion backgrounds, but there are always ways to, you know, get yourself closer and closer to a certain level of expertise. And I agree with Fee that yes, you know, I have gained a lot from not having formal background, because I don't know the rules, so I don't know when I'm breaking them, but having expertise is really good as well. So thank you to Yellowbrick for that. So definitely stay on so we can give that scholarship away. And we have somebody named Ashley who's taking notes and saying that so much. And someone else said, this is exactly why I started following you. I am self-taught as well and get a lot of flack for it, which I think is something that we unfortunately understand. And Cornelius Haywood says, hi Fee, I'm so proud. This is amazing.
Hi, Cornelius. Thank you guys for joining.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining. So actually talking about the fact that, you know, there's this idea of your success. You've dressed, you know, the First Lady of the United States, to Beyonce, to, you know, recently we saw Gabrielle Union wearing that beautiful sweatshirt, t-shirts, and yet there's this reality and this realness about you, about not failure per se only, but the truth of the process. And I know that, you know, you began as a retailer, and I'm sure Wagon, which was your store, must have been your baby. Yeah. So you can maybe share a little bit about the in-between moments, the harder moments that you have to pull yourself out of.
So you mentioned just a little while ago that I was so uneducated of what being in business was. So I just jumped into it. I was fearless. I'm like, I can do this. Of course I can sell clothes and play dress up. And I just had this complete fairy tale about what being in business was. And the Wagon was a clothing boutique that we had in Brooklyn. And I had a partner, actually two partners in the business. And what we did was, and we were young at the time. So mind you, I'm like 19 years old, going on 20. We have this store. So we're just like living the life at this point. And there were so many minor details that we forgot about. We also didn't have a financial investment, but what we did have was someone who gave us the space and initially filled it with a certain amount of inventory. And then from there, I had to take it and then bootstrap it. And going back, I just want to go back on that story. So when I started the boutique, I started on my own. And because at the time I was in school for finance, my mother was just like, absolutely not. You're not leaving college. I'm like, I can't do this by myself. I have to close it down. This was 6 months into the new business. This was before it became the Wagon. In the process of having this store is when I met my partner, Julius at the time, and we turned it into the Wagon because he had more free time and we were able to do it together. So he would run it while I was at school. And we were able to keep that going for 4 years. He had a huge following in Brooklyn, and we were able to make it into this like super fly place in Brooklyn. Like everyone was talking about it. People were flying from Japan, coming to visit it. It was just, it was before, it was just the most impeccable thing in its time. Like this was 2007. We were young, we were Black, and we were just like a gathering place for other young creatives and everyone else doing their thing as well. But what happened with that was it became really hard. When I started to really realize everything that goes into this, I'm like, this is hard and we cannot continue unless we get investments. And we didn't get a large investment. So after bootstrapping it for 4 years, and at this point I was tired, I'm like, this is not even fun anymore. And I had to make a decision between the store and pursuing the brand, because the store was the launching pad for the brand. And that's when I made the decision, like, well, let's close this down because we don't have the finances to keep it going. It's going to take too much time and too much money without the right knowledge. And that's when I made the switch. So I've always had to make tough decisions. That was my first real business that I was running on my own, you know? And when you're that young and naive, it's like it just feels like too much pressure to continue. So the brand, when I was thinking about the brand at that time, that felt more in reach to me. I'm like, oh, I can handle this. The wagon was just like, it had so many layers to it. Taxes, sales tax, all these kind of things. And I'm like, well, what's that? And they're like, oh, every time you sell something, you have to pay the government. I'm like, why? Like, they're not here, you know? It's just, it's such a funny story, but it is that prepared me for what I do today. And even now I've been getting the bug, like, oh, I want to do that again, you know, because I know better now. But there's going to be many ups and downs. Do I consider the wagon a failure? No, because we made history, we made our mark, we inspired people. And even though it didn't stay open for our 5-year mark and 10-year mark, which that's how we envisioned it, it still stayed open for 4 years with a couple of teenagers and a dream. And to me, that is a huge deal and a huge success, you know?
Without a doubt. I mean, in one of the most difficult cities in the world to have any business, you know? And I think if you could also touch on, in those moments where you know you have to dig deep, where do you go? How do you make the next decision? What's your sort of guiding light in moments like that?
For me, I have to go to God. Like, I always have to go to God. Any decision. Before I even got on this call, I got another phone call, and at that moment I had to say, okay, I'm going to give this to God. There's so many ups and downs that put you in a position of doubt, where you start to doubt yourself, you start to doubt your business, you start to doubt the work that you've put in. And the only place that I can really go where I can just authentically be myself without having to physically say word for word of what's wrong with me, where I feel like I'm speaking or meditating with someone who can see everything that's going on. And that's why I go to God. You know, I do have, of course, when I speak to my mom, or I speak to my colleagues or different people that I go to for different things. But ultimately, it's like, God, please show me where to go from here. I surrender. I'm always surrendering. I'm like, I don't know what the hell to do. I surrender to you, and give me a sign, you know, show me, give me a feeling, show me where to go from here. Meditating has been a huge part of me, just like staying sane and trying to think clearly and trying to make sound decisions. And as the business grows, it gets harder. And you feel more pressure. You feel performance pressure, you know, because you don't want to make a mistake now. Whereas before, when it's like, I can make all the mistakes I want. No one's watching. And now when people are watching, you're afraid to make a mistake. You want to do everything right, you know. In a nutshell, that's who I go to. You know, that's who kind of gives me a sign of relief. Because if I had to think it was all me, and the power was all in my hands, sometimes I think I would like be so overwhelmed that I have to believe in something bigger than myself has a play in this.
Absolutely. I mean, and you know what resonates about what you said also about performance pressure is the idea that, you know, you reach a pinnacle, or at least a perceived pinnacle in your career, like dressing floaters, let's just say.
Perceived pinnacle. I love that. I love that.
For instance, when I won Project Runway, I was, I think, depressed right after. The best period of that experience was when nobody knew. Only I knew, because I couldn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it was way too much. I think maybe you can tell us more about that, because people don't see that. And I'm reveling in this conversation so much because it's so real to hear this version when you only see that version.
Yeah, yeah.
Being so
I try to always give people, I don't want to be this pretty box, that's not attractive to me. I want to be the box that's like scuffed up and mishandled and this is a metaphor, guys, right? And then I still made it out okay. Like I want people to understand as much as I possibly can without discouraging anyone that there are so many pitfalls. And most times the pitfalls happen when everyone on the outside is clapping for you, right? You feel this sense of not being good enough, not being worthy, sort of like imposter syndrome. And this is something that creatives have to work through, right? Because you did the work. So this is happening for a reason. When Flotus wore my garments, that was one of the happiest moments. And what made it so special, one, having such an iconic woman wearing it, being a part of history, but also the type of woman she was and how respected she was and how my mom looked at, like, I finally felt like, oh, he has made it, right? Even though I still have this like struggling business that's making a mark, but still on behind the scenes, trying to gather the finances to really make the mark, right? Not just seeming like we're making the mark. And that's what bothers me the most. But that moment was one of the most, like, I remember screaming and crying and everyone calling from Grenada. It got to Grenada in like 0.5 seconds. And my grandmother just hearing how proud she was. That moment was amazing. But what happens now is it's such a high, right? And then the next day it's like a low. And you're gonna keep, I have to do something else now. Like what I have to do, like, how can I top that? How can I top that? And I literally had to tell myself, like, no, you don't have to top it. You can enjoy what that was. You can, I remember like, Rihanna has to wear it this weekend now. Like, like just thinking like, I have to be on a roll, because sometimes people only clap when those moments happen. So you never feel like you're working until they clap for you. But in all actuality, you've been slaving for so long, for so many years, even up until that moment and after, to make the business run. It's so many, I can name countless moments. I know exactly how you feel when you mention Project Runway. It's like when we did the Nike sneaker, it was like a high. And then you think like, oh, this and this is going to happen. And then it does it. And then now everybody's not clapping no more. And then you're like, did I make the right move with that opportunity? Did I do the right thing? It's not, once you start going like this, you have to be really, really careful of being detached from that. And you have to remember that those are good. It's cheerleaders cheering you along the way. You are still running a marathon. You still have a long way to go. And it is not about topping your next best thing. It's about doing what's in your heart and continuing to do that. And if you continue to do that, you'll always get the other stuff and you won't feel so much. I remember someone told me, don't let success go to your head and don't let failure go to your heart. So you have to keep this, I hate that I'm going to use this word, but just this balance of like congratulating yourself for the hard work that you've put in, but understanding that there's still more to do, and you can keep going. Always clap, always celebrate your wins. Always celebrate it. That's something that I had to learn, you know, because I wouldn't celebrate it because I felt like, oh, this, like I still have all this shit to take care of on the back end that's not right. And I'm like, no, this is something good. Celebrate it and still fixing that. Your life is never going to be without problems. Your life is never going to be without difficulty. There's never going to be a point where you're enjoying success with nothing going wrong. Never. So once you understand that, you're going to take both of them together, and you're going to enjoy this and celebrate this, and you're going to still go back to work and fix the thing that you were supposed to fix. And that's your balance, right? You're not letting failure take you down. You're not letting success take you too high. And you're staying right here, you know, and you can do that and still congratulate yourself. You can do that and still accept the accolades and go back to your original feeling of why you started in the first place, your why, you know, and now do your next thing that you're supposed to do, you know.
Amazing.
I got into that so deep. I felt that. Ooh, I felt that when I felt that when I was saying it. Like, okay, take your own advice, Fee. I hope we're recording this so you can
We are recording it because
I'm like, Anya, I'm not feeling too good. Well, let me tell you what you said back in so, because we always have to remind ourselves sometimes of that constantly, you know?
But these are some major gems. I mean, I'm literally taking notes, and I know everything. And I think, you know, I could go on and on, but let me just bring some of the questions into the conversation because I want to make sure people have a chance. So the first question we have is, how do you stay focused on your brand while maintaining life and responsibilities? And actually the second question is similar, so let me say it as well. How do you live a life of taking risks and financial uncertainty with a child in tow? Huge, amazing questions, both of those.
Okay, so I want to be completely real on this part because, you know, I don't want to tell people like, oh, just take risks, just take risks, just take risks. My family support is huge. So I always tell myself like, Fee, if you're not going to end up homeless and you have some place to sleep and some place to bathe, do it, right? Not everyone's situation is like that. I have a million aunts and uncles. I would have to go through so much people to end up on the street. Right. So that was always my thinking, like, do it, go for it. You know, like, you have to gamble. There's no way, I can't say it's gonna work if you don't do it. So if that's your only option, that's your only way, then that's what you have to do. Everyone else has, or not everyone else, some people have to think about it in different ways because they don't have a large family, they don't have a support system, they don't have certain things. But if that's the only way for you to, the only road is to do it, then you have no other option. What I would say for people that don't have a support system, maybe set it up in a way where it's a means to an end. Maybe you get a job that's easy for you to get, secure a certain amount of money, secure a place for you to stay, and then take the risk. You know, like everyone's path is going to be different. I have a large support system, so I'm able to say, I don't care, let me just do it. And that also helps with me having a child with my large support system. Like if I can't take care of him, I know his dad's gonna be able to take care of him. I know my mom is gonna be able to take care of him, you know, so I'm super blessed when I say this, like I didn't have to think about it in that aspect. So let's say you have a child and you're own and you have a business idea. Maybe you thread lightly, but you thread anyway. And maybe you set up, it may take you longer to start, but you set up something where it doesn't feel so much of a big jump where you'll end up homeless or just not in a good situation, because you do have your little one to think about. That is very, very important, you know? So I don't want to tell everyone like risk everything you have. Evaluate your situation, evaluate the people that you have around you, and see what's possible for you. But the only way is to take the risk. That is the only way. There's no other magic trick. You can test the market. That's a good way too. Like test the market with what you have, and that sort of thing. But again, it's when we're talking about risk, and that's how I thought of it. Like, I'm gonna risk everything I have because at least I'll have some place to sleep at night. And that's the basic needs. At least I can still fulfill my basic needs, so I can risk it all. And that was my risk-taking story. So I can only speak from there, and give a little advice on if your situation is not like that. But don't take my word for it, because you have to evaluate your situation for yourself. You have to do it for yourself. But I do know the only way to see if it works or not is to take the risk. There's not going to be anyone telling you this is going to work, this is not going to work. You have to put your hand in the fire, and continue to do that, even if it doesn't work out. That's my. I'm like processing it and thinking about it as well. Like, what if I didn't have certain things? So that's why my answer sounds like that. But you just have to evaluate your own situation and kind of make the decision. But you have to take the risk. There's no avoiding that. You know.
I mean, I get the sense from the little bit that we've had the chance to speak that you're the type of person that your need to take those risks, your need to be your full self is a need. It's a choice.
Can I say something funny, Anya, really quick? When I get in my mood, when I'm like, oh, I'm gonna quit this stuff, and I'm gonna and I start to think about, well, what else am I gonna do? I start to feel sad, because I'm like, even if I don't want to do this, that feeling that's inside of me, that burning desire, is so strong that I won't be happy doing something else and being successful. I have to succeed at this for whatever reason. I don't know who planted this inside of me. Like, I have to be successful at this. It's so crazy. It's bizarre.
I really get that. 100. I have this really goosebumps this entire. I don't know what's happening. Okay, so Zadell has asked, you're such an inspiration. How do you navigate between such a strong Caribbean vibe and an international appeal? Do you think the Caribbean aesthetic is something we can sell to the world?
I absolutely, thank you, firstly, by the way. And that didn't come easily. When I decided that the entire brand would be inspired off of the Caribbean, I was very specific that I didn't want it to come off as like tacky or just like too I would always say this to my team, oh, that looks too ABC. And what that means to me is like, it looks like anyone can think of that. Because I can't think of the word that I want to use, but when I say something looks too ABC, it's just like, it doesn't have enough flair to it, right? So I was very, very particular about my designs. And the reason why I feel like it has an international appeal is because I'm made up of different things, right? Like, I have my Caribbean backgrounds, but I'm also like running the streets of New York and Brooklyn, and I'm traveling and I'm watching old movies, and I always take note of things that I liked, whether I'm watching a movie, listening to a song. When I'm listening to a song, I'm always imagining like, oh, this makes me feel nice. Like I see myself in a corner with this sort of dress on and it's flowing like this. Like, that's how my mind works. And I just imagined that other women wanted to feel that way, and other women, it would resonate with other women. So it was very intentional when doing this particular collection that's heavily inspired by Grenada, that people could identify like, oh, these are Grenadian things, but it didn't feel like only a Grenadian could wear it. Right. People from all over the world can appreciate it. People from all over the world can look at it and say, oh, that's beautiful. That's art, you know? So I was very, very intentional about that. I don't know if I'm answering your question of the international appeal. Is just working out that way. Like women all over the world, and there's so many other women like me who are fairy taleist. I told Anya that yesterday. I think like I'm a fairy taleist that want to feel a certain way and vibe a certain way, because ideally female is a mindset, right? It's like sometimes not even about where you come from. It's just about your vibe inside and how you feel and how you want to feel and how you want the world to perceive you. And I bottled all those feelings up together and tried to create pieces or collections rather that represent that showcase that, you know.
No, and I think, well, you definitely answered, I think. And Daughter of the Soil is the most recent collection, right?
Yes,
And you showed it in Grenada during New York Fashion Week, correct?
Yes. So we shot it in Grenada. We shot it in Grenada. Everything was shot in Grenada. We made some of it in Grenada. Really? And we showed it in New York Fashion Week here in the States in February. Yeah, that just passed.
I mean, I think for everybody listening, and I can certainly speak for myself, it is so empowering to see you own your identity in such a bold and just fully free way. You know, I really do not take that for granted. It is something, again, towards the end of Runway, I was trying to design all these black, sleek silhouettes, and I got you know, and then the judges were like, "What are you doing? Like, just be your Caribbean self." And that's in the end why I won, because I just spat out all these dresses at the end that were like me, you know. But still, I mean, to do what you've done, you've taken that and you've made a commercially recognizable, editorially recognizable brand that, like you said, it's way more than your identity of your geographic identity.
Yeah.
You pulled something out of people. You pulled the Caribbean out of every human.
Yeah.
And I just think that's so incredibly inspiring. And, you know, I know that's what really resonates with so many people and your brand. So let me just get to this question. It is, what is the best way to start selling your products and ideas to the public?
So the best way to do that, and I think I said it a bit earlier, is take one of your products, the one you like the most, whichever product, whether you make face masks, clothing, whatever business that you're in, take one of it and show it to your family and friends. Try to sell it to people in your circle. And if that works, then you create an online, it is so easy to create online platforms now. I started with Big Cartel. Now I've moved on to Shopify, and I've been with Shopify. But these are all templates that if you read and just do not, and it's not extensive work. You read, do a little bit of research. You can put your product online, take the picture, put your product online. And now, again, you have social media. That is going to be the easiest place for you to sell it. And if you go back in the day, people had to do hand in hand, knock on doors, you know, like, "Hi, I'm selling this." Look, let me tell you, I may have to do that. You know, you want to get things rolling and you want to get it together. And let's say social media is gone. What are you going to do? That's what you have to go back to doing. How are you going to touch the people? You know, how are you going to make them feel what you have? I used to make this joke like, "Oh, I wish people can do a test drive of Felicia Noel. Like, I'll show up to their house and I'll tell them, go inside and put on the garment, and they'll put it on and this magical thing will happen and then they'll buy it," you know? That was an idea that I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to do that." But you really, right now, things are easier. Still not easy, but it's easier. You have social media, you have websites that you can create your own platform. There's so many ways to sell. You have Facebook. Like, let's say you don't even want to go to a website. Write people, email them. "Look, I have this product." If you have the ability, if it's something that they can test out, then do that. You have to believe in it so much that, you know, once they test it out, they're going to want to buy this. And the first step in that is just believing in what you're selling. You have to believe in what you're selling, you know, because that's how you're going to sell it.
Which is essentially believing in yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I want to just say that I like this movie, the Madam C.J. Walker movie that came out on Netflix. I think entrepreneurs should watch that. You know, you'll get inspired in some way. Yeah, even though it was back in the day, that was the way she started selling. And it wasn't even her own product at first, you know? Yeah. So definitely watch that. I love that movie, and I watched it several times. But that is a good way of bootstrapping also.
She also had almost everything not in her favor, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't the things that you're supposed to be. She was female, she was of a certain class, she was all, you know, all sorts of things. And I think that that's part of the story that really appealed to me as well, that sometimes nothing is in your favor. It's really what you ended up saying. It's you. It's your own drive, you know? Okay, one more question we have here. What do you think are the best ways to identify and nurture creative talents in the Caribbean and its diaspora?
I'm actually trying to do that right now. With the work that we've done in the Caribbean, we did some talent search, and we're trying to find the best way besides having to just really be on the ground in the island and search everywhere. We're trying to use social media. Some people have found me. I haven't really figured out or I don't know if there is a proper way of doing it, you know, and we haven't been able to find a whole heap of people. So we're still kind of taking it slow and doing it that way. So like, for instance, we shot with Grenadian models, and we worked with Grenadian agencies. But now, like, I'm from Grenada, so that was a bit easier. But now what if I go someplace else? Like, what if I go to Trinidad? You know, like, how do I get my foot in the ground there and meet other creatives and meet other creative people? Sometimes it's just word of mouth. So we don't have a formula for doing it yet, but we are trying to create it, because that is our goal, to really create of just any type of attention or any type of platform for other Caribbean designers or artists to be able to come out and have an international appeal as well, and to sell internationally, not just where they're from, but just to people all over the world. I worked a lot with the GTA, and they have women groups that they've started, and that's the Grenada Tourism Authority. So that's something else that we have to talk to, like, the tourism authorities of in any location that we go to, and say, like, oh, is there this available? Is there that available? What schools are available? You know, maybe that's another thing that we can do, is look for talents in schools. But sometimes it's just word of mouth. Like one of you guys can be on here and reach out to Anya, and then she reaches out to me and we connect, and you have something special. I'm all about that. Like, I've been mentoring young women since I started, because I was once there where I was like, how do I make money off my dream? How do I make a livelihood off of that? So I'm very passionate about showing other young women how to do that as well. Like, this is how you take what you dream of and turn it into something that you can really create a life for yourself and build a life for yourself with. Which is like the name of the Dream in Color Foundation, where I started a few years ago, was really to do that, to just be able to provide a platform to help other young artists thrive, you know.
How does can you apply to be considered for support through the foundation, or how do you usually handle?
So normally you can email. So it's not a formal, we didn't create a .org yet, and that's what we're working on building out. So for right now, so I started with like Jasmine Santiago, who's a part of Felicia Noel, who also has her own business right now. Most recently started with Klafani, who was a part of the Daughter of the Soil collection. And how I met Jasmine was I was talking in schools, and it was a favor of a friend where she would have me come out and talk to young girls. Klafani, we were introduced by my uncle. But people can just email, you know, like people can just email info@fenoel.com, And I can't take on too many girls at one time. So I'll sift through and say like, okay, we can do this amount of time, but you have to be dedicated. Like you have to be dedicated. You have to really want this and you have to be serious about it. And I have that talk with each of the girls that I meet, you know, before we start. And I literally help you turn it into, like, you will have a business. By the time we finish mentoring, you will have a business, and it'll be up to you to run with that. But I will definitely help get you started, you know, as much as I can.
Well, I know you're going to get a flurry of emails after you put that out there. Actually, somebody just asked, do you have or would you ever have any internship opportunities? So I'm sure if you emailed
Info, yeah, info@fenoel.com. Yes, we do.
And I cold emailed Fee, so
and I answered.
So I think we're coming to the end of an hour. We do have a couple more questions. It might be good if we start to talk about, you know, your closing recommendations, especially in this very uncertain time. If there are like a top 3 things that you would suggest designers, fashion practitioners of any kind, you know, I always say that not everybody can be a designer. So this is really advice for anyone who wants to be in the fashion industry.
Yeah.
I think that will be a good place to end. And I will connect you. We'll answer the rest of these questions offline, if that's okay with everybody.
Okay.
So
my three ending statements, and I think I said it throughout the whole entire conversation, but find your self-motivation, motivate yourself, continue creating. Even if you're the only one that believes in your product, that is enough. You have to try with what you created. You have to try with that. It was put into your whole entire being for a reason. So now I call it putting your music out into the world. And the only way to know if you can or you cannot is if you do. And those are the 3 things that I want you to remember. Those are the 3 things that I remind myself of every single day. And you're going to have the feeling of quitting and giving up every day. You have to choose to not quit. You have to choose to keep going. You have to choose to take that risk. It's a choice. You have to make the choice. That is the only way you can end up where you're meant to be, is if you make that choice.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Fee.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for joining. This was so much fun. Anya, you made this easy. I told you I get nervous when I talk, right?
No, well, the same.
Whatever. But thank you guys for having me. Seriously, I appreciate it.
And we did want to choose somebody to win the scholarship today.
Yes,
I know that you, I think, characteristically are very intentional about how you do things. So would you like us to do that now? How would you like us to make that selection?
Well, what is the criteria? Are we just going to pick from someone that's in here?
Usually that's, I think, ideally, so that somebody knows that they won today. That's how
So, yeah, let's pick it. Let's say it now. Okay. FYI, I can't see the screen. Like, I can't see the writing because I'm legally blind, but I can see like your face and stuff. I can't see like how many people are in here or who's in here or the names. So if you want to just pick, close your eyes, point to a name, I don't know, like whoever's supposed to win, the universe is kind of gonna, but I'm gonna pick someone today, sure.
All right.
Or so for now, rather.
Okay. Well, again, I just want to say thank you so much to Yellowbrick for this scholarship. And what it is an online program that is fashion essentials, and it is an affiliation with Parsons School of Design. So, you know, really a wonderful gift. And I think what I'll do is go ahead and give it to somebody named Zadell, who has been asking many questions.
Wow.
So Zadell, we will contact you offline to figure out how to gift you the scholarship. And you know, I just think it's so in line with so much of what your giving spirits, your generosity with your expertise, Fee, and I think it's so inspiring to see you to just give even from such an early stage in your career, as you said, when you first started. So I really hope that that's also what people take from this. So much of your advice, as I said, I think you could write a book tomorrow. But I think the authenticity of how you do what you do, it has really stood out to me. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Anya. It's truly been a pleasure. You're amazing being yourself, so I'm happy for us to connect. And I think this is going to be the start of many great things together. I have that feeling. So congratulations again to Zadell, and I hope you make really good use of it and take advantage of that, because it's really great that you won that. So, and to everyone who sat here and listened to us talk, I also appreciate you taking the time out to do so.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. And stay tuned for next week's talk, which is with Naomi Cowan, who is from Jamaica. And yes, we will continue on. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye.